Imagine this, you're a soldier. You survived the horrors of World War I machine guns. Trench foot, mustard gas, and more mud than you ever want to see again. You come home to Australia, expecting peace, a quiet farm life, maybe a sheep or two. But instead, you're handed a Lewis machine gun and told to go to war against emus. Yes, emus. Those big, goofy, 2-meter-tall flightless birds with necks like snakes and legs like jackhammers. It sounds like a Monty Python sketch, but I promise you, this is a real historical event. In 1932, the Australian government actually sent armed soldiers, real, trained, war-hardened veterans into the countryside to fight a growing population of emus that were causing chaos on farmland. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but how hard can it be to take down some overgrown chickens? Oh no, you see, these birds didn't just run, they organized, they split into squads, they outran trucks, they zigzagged like NFL players on caffeine, and the best part, they won. Australia literally lost a war to birds. So how the heck did this happen? Let's rewind the clock, load up the rifles, and march straight into one of the strangest military campaigns in modern history. They say history repeats itself, but what about the parts we forgot? Welcome to Echoes of History, the channel where we dig up the dusty corners of the past to uncover the weird, the wild, and the wait, what? Stories they didn't teach you in school. Grab your curiosity and maybe a cup of tea, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see the world. To understand why a bunch of grown men with machine guns ended up chasing birds through the Australian outback, we have to go back to the early 1930s. World War I had ended, but the world was still a mess, especially for returning soldiers in Australia. Many of them were given farmland as part of a government resettlement program. It sounded nice on paper, until reality hit harder than a kangaroo in a bad mood. And to make things worse, the Great Depression had just rolled in like a dust storm, wiping out crop prices and making farming barely profitable. The soil was rough, the climate was brutal, and the emus destroyed crops. Farmers were furious. These weren't just birds anymore, they were invaders. It was like an all-you-can-eat buffet for angry, oversized birds, tens of thousands of them, migrating westward after breeding season. Stumbled upon these newly cleared farmlands and saw paradise. Open fields, endless food, no predators. They trampled fences, devoured wheat, and so, the farmers did what Australians do best when faced with a bizarre problem. They called them government, specifically the Minister of Defense, because clearly, the only logical solution to a bird problem was military intervention. And so, the stage was set in late 1932. The Australian government sent Major G.P.W. Meredith and a couple of soldiers armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition into the wheat belt of Western Australia. Their mission? Simple. Reduce the emu population fast. Their confidence sky high. After all, these were battle-tested veterans and the enemy, birds. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. The first engagement happened near Campion. A group of about 50 emus were spotted, and the soldiers set up an ambush. They waited patiently. They opened fire. Click, click, click. The birds scattered in all directions like feathery ninjas. Only a few were hit. Most escaped, unharmed and probably laughing internally, at least. The terrain was rough. The truck bounced like a kangaroo on a trampoline, and the gunner couldn't aim properly. The emus outran the truck. The next attempt involved mounting the gun on a truck. Great idea. In theory. In reality, yes, they outran a moving vehicle. Over the next few days, they fired hundreds of rounds with pitiful results. The emus were too fast, too unpredictable, and seemingly immune to logic. The soldiers kept trying. Major Meredith would later say, if we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world. In short, the Australian army came. They saw, and the emus said, nice try, mate. Word got out, and when I say got out, I mean the newspapers had an absolute field day. Headlines like, emus outgun army, birds won, humans 0, and my personal favorite, military defeated by flightless flock were popping up across the country. The public was confused, the farmers were furious, and the military embarrassed beyond belief. Back in Parliament, politicians had to answer the unthinkable question, why are we losing to emus? To make things even worse, Major Meredith's team had only managed to kill about a few hundred emus after using thousands of rounds. That's not just inefficient, that's legendary failure. It was estimated that for every successful kill, they used nearly 10 bullets. At one point, the military pulled out entirely. Mission aborted, emus victorious. The birds took back the battlefield and probably strutted around like feathered warlords. But the farmers still had a problem. The emus didn't read newspapers. They didn't know they won. They just kept eating, trampling, and destroying crops like tiny feathery tanks on a sugar rush. So once again, the cries for help reached the government. And because history never gets tired of being ridiculous, the Emu War was relaunched. Yes, Australia decided to try again. Round began a few weeks later, because apparently Australia is the kind of place where if you lose to birds, you double down. Major Meredith was sent back into the field. Same mission, same guns, same birds, but this time, they were a bit more strategic. No more shooting from trucks. No more random ambushes. They started using better timing and positioning basically. They stopped treating the emus like they were just oversized pigeons and started treating them like, well, surprisingly capable foes. And you know what? It kind of worked. Not exactly a total wipeout, considering the total population was estimated at 20,000 or more. But hey, progress. Over the following weeks, the soldiers managed to kill around 1,000 emus. Politicians were roasted harder than a Sunday lamb, still, even with improved results. The whole operation was a PR disaster. The government was ridiculed internationally. One British paper even suggested training the emus and using them in the military. Honestly, not the worst idea. Eventually, the operation was shut down for good. The emus had survived. They weren't wiped out. They simply outlasted the humans. No surrender, no treaty, just birds being birds. So what happened after that? Well, the farmers ended up building better fences, and the government started offering bounties for emu kills, leaving the dirty work to civilians. Instead of soldiers, the emus, they just kept running around, probably telling tales of the time they made an entire army look like amateurs. And that, my friend, is the tale of the Great Emu War, one of history's most bizarre battles, where nature reminded humanity that sometimes clueless birds can outsmart machine guns. That's it for today's Forgotten Tale. If this story made you raise an eyebrow don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that dusty little bell so you never miss another echo from the past. Drop it in the comments. We're always listening for new echoes. Got a weird bit of history you think we should cover? Until next time, keep your curiosity loud and your history weird.